Let me tell you about James. James was a 19-year-old boy, ready to go to university. He was so excited. He saw university as the opportunity for him to get free from his mother's nagging, to continue his homework, to finish his homework, to go to school, to wake up early in the morning and to sleep early at night. James was finally ready to be what he wanted to do. Upon arriving to his university, James loved his freedom. He was able to stay up late at night, be on social media, or play his online games. He was able to wake up late in the morning. There was no one to nag him, no one to force him. He was the master of his own day. However, these habits also got James into a lot of trouble. James eventually used to miss his deadlines. He used to miss his classes. He used to miss all his coursework. And within his final exams, James had unfortunately failed. Upon his results, the university had to let James go, telling him he needs to take a break from his university life and to develop a more mature attitude towards his studies. After returning back home, James' parents take him to go see a psychiatrist, who then diagnoses James with ADHD. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that starts in an individual's childhood and carries on towards their adulthood. ADHD impacts one's ability to control the impulsivity as well as the attention and focus. There are two types of ADHD. One type of ADHD is inattention or distractibility. This is where a person cannot pay attention to fine details. They constantly make careless mistakes. They are unable to follow through instructions. And this is also because they keep forgetting their daily tasks or the instructions that are given to them. This can be seen with James' case because James used to forget his deadlines. He never used to meet his deadlines. He never used to go for his classes. This is because he was unable to pay attention to the finer details given to him within his class. The second type of ADHD is known as impulsivity or hyperactivity. This is where a person is always on the go. So this means even if they have nothing to do, they will still find something for them to do. They always fidget. They can never sit quietly in a situation where they are supposed to sit quietly. For example, a student who is supposed to sit down on their desk and listen to the teacher, in a given situation, they would stand up while the teacher is talking. They would walk around the class whereas they were supposed to be seated. Another sign of impulsivity or hyperactivity is that the individual is very talkative. This means even in a given situation where they should be silent, such as during a religious prayer or within their class where they're supposed to be quiet, they end up talking and they talk excessively. Initially, you need to read up on ADHD. You need to study ADHD. You need to understand the signs of ADHD, and you also should understand the mind of someone who has ADHD. This will give you the biggest advantage on how you can approach someone who has ADHD. People with ADHD need to be approached with a lot of care, a lot of comfort, and need to be approached very patiently. After you have read up on ADHD and understood the signs of ADHD, it's important that you adjust your behavior and how you approach this individual with ADHD. So, in order to do this, you need to separate the person from their symptoms. If a person is forgetful, if they end up forgetting the daily tasks such as washing the dishes, then you need to separate this symptom from them and guide them and help them and explain to them that why they have forgotten to wash the dishes. And the most important task where you can help someone with ADHD is help them develop a routine. An individual with ADHD who is unable to meet their deadlines, who is unable to perform their daily responsibilities and daily tasks, this frustrates them and they end up hating themselves. They end up looking at themselves with less worth. This impacts their self-esteem. So if you are able to help them form a daily routine, such as the timing they should wake up. After they wake up, what should they do? When should they eat breakfast? How should they get to work? How should they divide the work that they have pending? What time they should get to bed? How they should get to bed? What habits they should have before they get to bed? This helps them bring some sort of structure and organization into their life and impacts their overall self-esteem and self-worth. However, if you notice that these signs of ADHD are impacting the individual's social life, they're impacting the educational life, they're impacting the occupational life, then it is vital you motivate this person to go and seek out professional assistance, because they can come in for therapy, they can speak to a professional who can guide them to understand what triggers them, as well as how they are able to cope with these behaviors, how they are able to change these behaviors, and how they're able to form a different routine, a different outlook towards certain triggers. Because a professional is able to help the individual identify their triggers towards their symptoms and their signs. Thereafter, the professional can guide them on how they can cope with these triggers and how they can improve their self-esteem and self-worth. Therefore, come into Hisia Psychology Consultants and we will always be ready to help you.